a perfect game for Roy Halladay.
What is up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the Phaithful Phanatics podcast. And today we have the honor to have on ESPN's Get Up, Paul Hembo. Hembo, Paul, thank you so much for coming on. And how are you, man?
I'm doing good. It's good to be here. And I just have to say, you have exquisite Delco accent. So you're making me feel at home. I'm repping the Phillies gear, so this is going to be a lot of fun. I don't get a chance to talk with a lot of homeboys like you up here in Jersey, so you're actually doing me a favor. I'm looking forward to doing this thing.
Awesome. Thanks, man. So I guess let's start with the Sixers, right? Because that's what's fresh in my mind after last night's win versus Celtics. So we finally got to see the product that Daryl Morey has put together here officially last night. So albeit a preseason game, what are your impressions on Daryl Morey so far and the job he has done constructing this roster?
Yeah, so it's early yet. Obviously, they haven't played a game that matters, but so far his tenure's been a home run from where I sit. So if you had asked me entering the offseason what the two biggest priorities were, in no particular order, you would have said dishing the Al Horford contract and collecting shooting. And he did that in one day, the day of the draft. So it's hard to argue against what he's done so far. I think a lot of us have been suspicious that Morey coming this way might be a precursor to trading for James Harden. But even if that doesn't happen, I'm actually fairly confident in this roster that he's constructed, because even though he may have given away more talent than we've gotten back in those deals, they're much better fits here. And I think what matters in the modern NBA is by fitting the right people by your stars. And we have all the data that says if you surround Joel Embiid and Ben Simmons with good shooting, reasonable defenders, they're one of the best two-man tandems in the league. At least they have been in recent history. So to me, that is absolutely the overwhelming storyline of the season. Can those guys ball again together like they did just a couple of years ago? And can Doc get the most out of them? Because if so, you're not going to hear Philly fans talk about James Harden for much longer.
Yeah, another big question coming in the season was definitely how we could fit Ben and Joel to play successful together, basically. Last year, they didn't look very much in sync. I think that was a huge part to, like you said, roster construction with Al Horford. Yeah. It just all really didn't work well. But then last night, you kind of saw where Joel was kind of playing more off of Ben with everything being wide open. We saw two possessions where he got to the foul line twice, where Ben made his first move, and then Joel made a really nice cut. And he was able to get him the ball in a situation to score, which he ended up getting fouled. Is that how you think is that the main way you think they'll play well together, is Joel playing more off of Ben or vice versa?
Yeah, I do. I mean, Ben's a ball-dominant player, obviously, but in my vast basketball playing experience, my coach used to say offense is spacing and spacing is offense, and the 76ers really lacked that last year. The example that you used is a good one. When the Sixers played those two guys alongside Al Horford, they genuinely were the least efficient offense in the NBA. So Daryl Morey clearly identified that as a problem area and threw him out of town. We all get that. My expectation, given the fact that they didn't add another ball handler, is that everything's going to play off of Ben Simmons. I was advocating this offseason for them to actually pursue a point guard who can run the half-court offense and let Ben Simmons do his thing in transition. I still think that should be on the table potentially here at the trade deadline, but Daryl Morey's been very active at the trade deadline. So the team we have right now might not be the team that we have, say, in March. But that notwithstanding, it is my expectation that they're going to just sort of run this thing back with those two guys the way that you described how they played last night, just to see how it goes. Because over the course of a full season, they're going to figure out their rotations and they're going to figure out what else they can do. And there are going to be opportunities for Daryl Morey to move at the deadline like he always does.
Absolutely agree. Speaking of the trade deadline, not only were the Sixers into action last night, but James Harden and the Rockets made their preseason debut. And we basically have asked every guest that's come on the show so far their opinion about this. So, Hembo, do you think the Sixers should make a push for James Harden? And if so, would you include Ben in the package?
I would definitely not trade Ben Simmons for James Harden. So this is a complicated question. I don't want to get too far into the weeds, but the way that I see it right now, I view James Harden as, and tell me if you guys agree, somewhat of a distressed asset, which is to say everyone acknowledges how good a player he is. I mean, he's a top 5 player in the world right now, at least when he's, conditioning himself somewhat, which it doesn't appear he's doing at the moment, whether it be to send a message or whatever. But that being said, Ben Simmons and James Harden, I think theoretically might have the chance to be the best backcourt, literally we've ever seen. So Ben Simmons, we know, is probably the third best transition player in the NBA behind LeBron and behind Giannis. We know that James Harden's probably the best half-court scorer this league seen since Kobe Bryant. We know Ben Simmons can guard. We know James Harden has no interest in doing so. We know Ben Simmons can't shoot. We know James Harden is among the most prolific shooters in the history of the NBA. We also know that Daryl Morey, based on his track record in Houston, is much more inclined to want to pair James Harden with a guard rather than someone like Joel Embiid. He has never cared about stretch players like that at all. It's not obvious to me why that would change now. So I actually have this delusion of grandeur that you could trade for James Harden, do an Embiid for Harden, Embiid plus a little bit for Harden, and make it work. And that's still the best the Rockets are going to do. It's better than any package the Nets can throw their way, aside from maybe moving Kyrie Irving in their direction. But there is something tantalizing about that. The question I have, though, is, are you prepared for the James Harden experience? Because if you trade for James Harden, your entire program is essentially whatever he wants it to be, as it's been in Houston for the last 6 or 8 years, as you probably read today on ESPN.com.
Yeah.
That's what concerns me. So the Sixers have this program in place, one that we feel fairly good about right now, and it's one that James Harden could completely annihilate if he doesn't like it here. All that said, there's not a person more equipped to make that decision than Daryl Morey is. So if Daryl Morey does trade for James Harden, it would indicate to me that I should feel good about it because nobody has more information on him than Morey does. If he doesn't, it should make me feel like maybe he got out of Houston at the right time, maybe because he was tired of James Harden telling him in the front office what to do and everyone else kowtowing to him. So it's sort of a long-winded answer. I didn't even really answer your question. I think I would love to see them play alongside each other, but in reality, I don't think it's all that realistic. And I think there's a really good chance that you give yourself like a 2-year window here, because I'm not sure even in 3 years if James Harden is a value positive player because of the way that he plays.
I completely agree with that Ben Simmons, James Harden comment as well. I think that those two together in a backcourt would be absolutely astounding to watch.
They are all-time greats at what they do, and what they do is the complete opposite of what the opposite does. So I just like that. The Sixers would be the favorite to win the East this season and next should they do that. But it's also not obvious to me that you could trade for James Harden at 15 pounds overweight James Harden at the trade deadline if it's not working out with Embiid and Simmons this year. Like if Doc just isn't cracking the code, you might be able to do it. But I'm absolutely not trading Ben Simmons under any circumstance. I'm not giving away a young top 20 player in the league for a player with James Harden's profile. The Rockets won't get more than 50 or 60 cents on the dollar, and I don't think the Sixers should feel obligated to move Simmons under any circumstances. Although I do think that if you're Houston, you can sell John Wall plus Joel Embiid to your fan base and say, we can make a push at this in the West and have some fun while we do it.
All right, real quick before we move on to a more depressing team, and I throw it to my man George. You mentioned Daryl Morey. You mentioned not wanting to give up Ben. Daryl Morey has stated multiple times, we're not moving Ben. We're not moving Ben. We know he loves Joel. So I don't see how they move Joel either. If he was to come out and make that deal with Houston and Ben Simmons is no longer a Sixer, does that hit you wrong? Like meaning like trusting Daryl Morey, trusting what he says. He just got here and he's been adamant we're keeping these two together, and then he ships Ben out.
I wouldn't view that move negatively because he told us he wasn't going to do it, because that's what GMs do. They're salesmen. I would not like the trade though, because I favor Ben Simmons as a player, and I think over the next 5 years he's going to produce more value than James Harden is, and considerably more value than Joel Embiid would. So it doesn't much matter to me what Daryl Morey has said. I'm pretty confident though that if in an honest moment you ask Daryl Morey, which of these two guys would you want as a centerpiece for this program moving forward, he would say Ben. And the reason for it is because his track record, which of course you all know is analytics driven, does not view players like Joel Embiid as the future of the NBA. Joel Embiid, in my judgment, is a better trade asset given the position he plays and the trajectory of his career than he is an asset on the Sixers if they can't make it work the way they did 2 years ago.
Yeah, shifting the conversation onto the Birds. Jalen Hurts made his debut last Sunday against the Saints. He made some really good throws. He used his legs really well against that really good Saints rush defense. What are your overall thoughts on this play? Well,
first of all, did that game not just like breathe life into you guys? Like I was watching that game with the kind of emotion, like with the NFC Championship game in 2002. Like I was so friggin' into it. Like my wife and dog thought I was absolutely crazy.
I was so checked out.
It feels good to get a victory Monday. We haven't had it in a while. It felt really good.
Yeah, it felt good to like watch a football game and feel like and just feel it again, right? Like it's like you got back with your girlfriend and it was like, oh yeah, that's what it's supposed to feel like, after 2 months of just complete garbage. So in a nutshell, I'm not all that surprised that Jalen Hurts played well, because you guys probably know that I think Jalen Hurts can play. He demonstrated considerable growth as a passer his last year in college. We know he can run the crap out of the ball. We know that he's a great leader. We know he's among the more accomplished quarterbacks in the history of college football. So the narrative that he was some sort of project was always confusing to me, because he had proven so much at two different elite blue chip college programs and had a lot of experience there playing. I mean, he started as a freshman at Alabama, for God's sake. So I wasn't surprised that he played well, and I think the narrative surrounding him has been pretty lazy and inaccurate. Like, I think people forgot or didn't pay attention how much he improved when he was there. I'm also not surprised the team played inspired because that's what the Eagles do when Carson Wentz doesn't start. You know, you guys know that Doug Peterson's now 11-3 as the Eagles head coach when Carson Wentz doesn't start. And although there's not a whole lot of difference in terms of how the offense performs, it's actually the defense that has really played inspired and taken more ownership in those games for whatever reason, and that showed up again on Sunday. Now, what I will say is a lot of people are raining on Jalen Hurts' parade because he didn't throw the ball all that accurately. He turned the ball over late in the game, and we'd be crushing Carson Wentz if he did that, and that might be true. But a couple things are worth noting here. The first of which is, first of all, Carson Wentz started that game. The Eagles are down like 3 touchdowns at that point if he fumbles at the end of the game, so it doesn't matter. And secondly, they're playing the number 1 defense in the league. The Saints were the number 1 defense in the league and had allowed 44 points in their previous 5 games on 57 drives. So the fact that Jalen Hurts was able to even stay upright is astonishing. All week on ESPN, my friends were telling me that Jalen Hurts was going to get lambasted, like that he had no chance against this defense. Like it was going to get ugly, right? Like we're going to give this guy a 1-game experiment to prove that Carson Wentz isn't the problem. Well, as it turns out, maybe it wasn't the offensive line, and maybe it wasn't the skill guys, and maybe it wasn't the coaching, and maybe it wasn't the defense. So that might be a little bit more than what you asked for. But and also, my stance is a little more anti-Wentz than it is pro-Hurts. I do think he's going to struggle a lot in sort of more mature passing. But as it relates to this team right now, there's no question that he's the best choice. And really, he's been the best choice all season. I think anyone willing to acknowledge reality, I think at the end of the season, will look back and say, like, this is probably a move that Doug should have made a long time ago.
Oh, Hembo, you're breaking my heart. You're breaking my heart, man. I know you're a numbers guy, though. So, obviously, I know you love this performance. I think he played extremely well in the first half. You acknowledge that he didn't play well in the second half, but that's the Saints' number 1 defense. What did your eyes tell you versus what did the numbers show you? Because PFF, I don't know what all goes in, what Pro Football Focus looks at and puts into a calculator, but they didn't give him a really good grade. So what did your eye test show you versus the numbers?
So what the numbers say was that he was outstanding on run plays. We know that. He was outstanding against the blitz. We could see that. That on pass plays, he was below average. I think his QBR was 43 out of 100 on pass plays. And that against a standard rush, a lot of those pass plays, he performed very badly as well, which is to say, like, when he needed to process information, survey the defense, and make progressions, he was at best average. And we knew that would be the case because that was his weakness all along. And again, it was against the number 1 defense. When I watch him play, what I see is a player who understands down and distance and is willing to stay on schedule. So a couple of numbers really stood out to me, and this is what my eyes tell me too. So he was pressured 14 times in that game, and on those 14 plays, the Eagles took 0 negative plays and gained 82 net yards. So those are, like, if Carson Wentz is starting that game based on track record, right, he's taking 5 or 6 sacks, and the Eagles are going to be in 2nd and 14 or 3rd and 18, right? We just know that. Like, Carson Wentz took 50 sacks this year. So some of those were on the line, some of those were on him, but Jalen Hurts either escaped or threw the ball away. He threw the ball away 3 times. Carson Wentz hadn't thrown the ball away 3 times in any game this season. So from where I sit, for this offense, given the fact that we are dealing with a patchwork offensive line and much less than desirable skill position guys on the outside, you need a quarterback that can do things on his own, and Jalen Hurts can do things on his own. So I'm not sure this guy's going to be some star. I don't even know if he'll even be a starter in the league next year. I had a first-round grade on him, and I was one of a very few group of people that did. I don't know if I'll be proven right or not. But the bottom line is, if you have a bad line, if you have bad guys on the outside, you need a quarterback that can do things. He can do things with his legs, and I think over the course of the last month of the season, he can microwave some success. And if he was able to do that against the Saints, even without any tape, even with a little bit of tape, he should be able to do so against Arizona and the rest of the teams within our division the last 2 weeks of the season.
Yeah. Oh, sorry. We all know that this team needed a spark, like you've been saying. Was that just what it was, like a spark, or do you actually think Jalen Hurts is going to continue winning this season? Because in my personal opinion, I hope they lose every game because I want a top draft pick. I'm not going to even lie to you.
Well, it's probably too late to obtain the top 5 pick. Like, even if they lose out, they're probably not going to pick. They're not going to get Fields or Lawrence, right? So, like, I like you root for that, but when I'm watching in a moment, I can't do that to myself because
same.
I see the green and I just like that midnight green is just so sexy, so I just have to root for them in the moment. I get it. It's not obvious to me that Jalen Hurts can't play long term though. I think he'll probably, if I just taking a guess here, I think he'll win 2 of the last 3 games of the season. In part because I think the Eagles defense is going to show up. But that's a thing we're not talking about here is that if Jalen Hurts is staying on schedule and not turning the football over, the defense obviously has a chance to be a lot better. Carson Wentz was so turnover prone. Carson Wentz didn't have a game this season in which he was sacked 0 times and had 0 interceptions. And Jalen Hurts did that in his first career start, right? So there is so much value in just protecting the football and trusting what is a top 10 or 12 defense by our measure. So I think the Eagles are going to win 2 of their last 3 games. The game I'm least confident in is against Washington, I think. But I actually feel decent about them going to Arizona next week too. So maybe I'm a little bit more bullish than you because I'm sort of living in the moment. But I've been all season long, as you guys probably know, if you have any access to my Twitter, I've viewed Carson Wentz as the problem. So the way that I see this thing, if Jalen Hurts is obviously supplanting him at this point, and I think he can play at all, in theory, if he can play like league average quarterback with a good defense, the Eagles should have at least a 50% chance to win all 3 of those games. That might not be, that's some rudimentary math, but that's how I see it. I think the kid can play a little bit, and it's not obvious to me that he won't be the week 1 starter next season either, which I know a lot of people aren't that into. But I think you could do worse, and the 4-game audition here at the end of the season will go a long way in obviously making that decision for us.
So another question we've kind of been asking a lot of people have come on is basically we've been playing the blame game at the beginning of the year between Doug, Howie, and Carson. And with the answer you're kind of given, I can start seeing where your blame game is going. But let me ask you this. Because basically you're saying you think we'll win 2 more games.
Yeah.
That could very well be a division title, which would put Doug in the playoffs 4 times out of 5 years. If one of those 3 people between Doug, Howie, and Carson aren't here next year, who do you think it will be?
Doug. And he might leave on his own accord. Like you watch him in his press conferences, he looks like he's really over us, to be totally honest. And if the Eagles do miss the playoffs, though, someone's going to go, right? Because that's just how this thing works. Now, my guess is that Howie has a better chance to stay because Howie's track record, even though he has not drafted at all in his second iteration here as GM, he did win a Super Bowl with this team and build a roster that was decimated 2 years earlier by Chip Kelly. So I think what he did is still one of the more impressive things that any GM has done in the last 15 or 20 years. And I don't think we talk enough about that. On the same token, obviously Doug won a Super Bowl with Nick Foles, and that's obviously going on his flag someday too. But the head coach in the NFL is usually the sacrificial lamb. I think he's the one most likely to go. Carson obviously is a tough putt because the contract, right? And you have a tough time trading him, or you obviously won't cut him because of the cap hit, but trading him is a tough putt too because you're losing so much value. You're not getting anything for it financially. And are you really trusting Jalen Hurts in year 2 to play? Now, my sort of pie in the sky scenario here is that Jalen Hurts plays well enough, but the Eagles miss the playoffs. Doug Peterson either leaves or gets fired, and the Eagles try and pursue Lincoln Riley, which would be an awfully cool thing. We've seen Chip Kelly have some success here, and I still don't think fans would hate the idea of bringing a college guy in. And if Lincoln Riley was willing to leave Oklahoma for this job, it would tell me he believes in the quarterback, Jalen Hurts, who he obviously coached there to finish second in the Heisman last year. So that's sort of an outlandish conspiracy theory. But I think to answer your question in a roundabout way, Doug's the one least likely to be here next year. But Carson would be if the contract allowed it.
So before we go to Snap's last question, I have one for you. So it's kind of going off that. Would you rather see, Hembo, as a fan, not as an analyst, as a fan, would you rather see Doug with Jalen or Carson with a new regime?
Doug with Jalen. Look, I need you to like 5 minutes ago, you told me an answer I provided you like broke your heart. I need you to tell me. I must admit, I don't know intimately all of your opinions on Carson Wentz and how this has gone down. I need to know why he has apologized for so much. I need to know why he has made excuses for more than any quarterback in this town ever. If Donovan McNabb ever played this bad, we would have punted him to the sun. I need you to tell me why you are so heartbroken by Carson Wentz's inevitable demise. Because it's not obvious to me that he's all that likable. It's not all that obvious to me that he's done enough winning here to warrant it. He's seemingly a fan favorite, but I don't quite get why. Now, I don't live locally in the market, but to me, like, there is a real disconnect between what I see on the field and what I hear from fans like you on the radio. Because to me, it's not obvious that he should – like, I feel like I'm surprised more people don't feel like me about Carson Wentz.
See, the funny thing is, like, with doing this podcast and all I normally get flooded in the comments with is people with your opinion. So We're kind of reverse here. Look, it's weird. Dude, he's been awful. I'm not defending him this season. But I don't – like, I'm not even just talking about 2017 because everyone says, oh, he had one good year, he's MVP, blah, blah, blah. Okay. Last year, he was the first quarterback throw for 4,000 yards and not a single wide receiver have over 500. To me, Hembo, the issue is the whole roster construction, the coaching. Like, you've done nothing to help this kid out. It's, to me, the team is still as bad as it was as the end of last year. His hero ball in the last 4 games masked all of that. You did nothing to help him out going forward except draft his replacement and draft project picks, and now he's not playing well because of it. The interceptions, I know they were nauseating this year, but he's never been a quarterback to throw interceptions like that. It's 1 year. If he plays like this next year, I want to have you back on the show a year from now, and I will tell you I was so far wrong. Everyone was right. But can I get more than 10 bad games?
10 bad games? Like,
This
that's the whole season. Okay, so here's where I'm at with this, right? So all of what you said is that you made a very good argument for him. That 4,000 yards, 500 I gave Orlovsky, by the way, but that notwithstanding, Carson, we're not talking about 10 games. We're talking about 4 years of average quarterback play. This is obviously his worst year, but what he did in the last month of last season was awesome. But it was against the division, and none of those wins, in my judgment, were all that good. Sure, he elevated the roster around him, but let's not forget the fact that Nick Foles was the one that resurrected this team from a 5-6 start in 2018. Let's not forget that Nick Foles' numbers in 2017 were as good as Wentz's after we replaced him. Like, there was a chance, okay? Just wrap your mind. Like, I think there's a chance that Carson Wentz was never actually that good, and he was always a byproduct of the people around him. Because in 2017, that team was so good it won the Super Bowl without him and without their Hall of Fame left tackle, right? That's an all-time great roster. Aside from that, Carson's 24-30-1 as the starter of this football team. And in 2016, 18, 19, and 20, generally speaking, we're talking about average rosters. You acknowledge how bad the roster is this year. And he played down to it, right? So I think there's a chance that Carson Wentz is a player who is just a product of his environment. The same as Matt Ryan and Jared Goff and Jimmy Garoppolo and Cam Newton. Or like that. And if we're willing to accept that's who he is, I'm good with it. But we need to stop talking about Carson Wentz like as any deviation from 2017 is someone else's fault. He has been objectively terrible this year. And it was only 1 game against the Saints and half a game against the Packers. He was averaging 6.5 yards of playing with Jalen Hurts as their quarterback right now against 2 decent defense, one really good defense and 1 average defense. The average like a yard and a half less than that with Carson Wentz. It's the difference between like the Packers and the Bengals this season. Okay, we're talking about a considerable gap in performance. Maybe it's just because of the fit. Maybe you're right. But this is more like an observation here. When I watch Carson Wentz play, and like literally after week 1, I was ringing the siren screen. I did a monologue after week 2 about this. He looks broken. Like, he looks like his decision making. It looks to me like the way he surveys the field. It looks to me like his processing is totally askew, and he needs to be rebuilt. And that's not a statistical thing, even though you obviously can't support that with numbers.
But why is it? Because I go back to Doug. I want Doug out of here. Mm-hmm. So I get it. Doug is what now 11-3. You said with a backup quarterback. That's great. And maybe it's Carson and Doug's better. Blah blah blah. My thing is everything you're seeing. Carson's better out of the pocket. He doesn't move the pocket. He doesn't roll Carson out. He abandons the run. Miles Sanders ran the ball down Cleveland's throat one time, the first drive in a monsoon. Yeah. He's got Carson dropping back behind that offensive line. Yeah. Because to me, listen, they won that game on Sunday because Jalen Hurts is a more mobile quarterback than Carson Wentz. He was able to.
They won the game Sunday because Jalen Hurts is a better quarterback than Carson Wentz. I think that your Doug Peterson point's a good one. A good one. I think he's done a bad job with this football team this year, and I think in an honest moment he would agree with you. But I think there's also a good argument to be made. He was talking earlier this week about how he affords Carson Wentz more freedom than he does Jalen Hurts. I think there's a chance that the reason the Eagles' play calling has been so bad is because Carson Wentz has limited them himself. Like, I think we just need to make, like, I might be wrong here, and you might be wrong here, but if we both consider that we might be wrong here, maybe there's a chance that both of these guys think right now, right? Yeah. Maybe. But ultimately, when I watch Carson Wentz play, I see a broken quarterback, and I see a coach that can't throw small. And I know because I've seen it that Doug Peterson can call a great game. And I've also seen Carson Wentz apologize for him more than anybody because, like, I heard on the broadcast on Sunday, I heard Moose argue that he misses Frank Reich because Frank Reich does Bible studies with him and like some such nonsense. Like, well, for what quarterback do we ever make that apology? Yeah. Like, this is, I get, like, the public, especially the national media, loves this guy. I get it, but like, to me, some of the excuses that we make for him are totally out of bounds, and they're not excuses we would make for any quarterback of his apparent stature.
No, and I'll never do that. My only excuse is what's around him. And I know when you get paid that money, you're supposed to elevate everyone around you. He did that last year. And then to me, you continue to not help him in any way, shape, or form. So to me, I'd rather see a new OC and a new play caller in here. Get the offensive. Brandon Brooks will be back next year. Lane Johnson will be back next year. Go out and draft Jamar Chase if you're a top 10 pick and you have a chance to get him. Like, put something around him. And again, then if he's still bad, you were right. I know we could both be right and wrong, but I want more than just a bad season out of him.
Yeah, Carson's not going to start in the league this year, so that's my going theory. So we'll do this a year from now and see he's right. I'll buy you a premium if you are.
I love this. I just have to say that was a great exchange. That was awesome.
This is me and Orlovsky over text, by the way. You just got to bring it to life. That was all that was.
Oh, that's awesome. But all right, let's move to Phillies.
Yeah.
Oh wait, we have to get his opinion.
Oh yeah, sorry.
Sunday.
So finally, what are your feelings about Sunday? Because I do think this is a winnable game for the Birds, but Arizona has been a very good team this year, and I want to get your opinion on Cardinals versus Eagles.
Outright. Eagles are winning this game outright.
I agree.
The Cardinals they beat up on the Giants a good bit last week, but a lot of that had to do with Daniel Jones playing on one leg. If you can limit what Kyler can do in the run game, he's actually a very average passer, and that defense is crumble. I think there's a really good chance the Eagles will be able to move the football against those guys. And I think like the lack of tape on Jalen helps a lot. And again, I have a good feeling about the way our defense played last week. Look, it's going to be a dogfight, obviously. That's a pretty good team, and that game matters for them too. But I mean, I'm one that I'm beholden to the numbers. So me saying I got a good feeling doesn't carry much weight in my world. But I do. I think the Eagles are well equipped to play with those guys because I think of their ability. If they can contain Kyler Murray, which I expect they'll do, I think the Eagles can win that game. I think first to 25 wins that game.
I think Kevin Seymour is going to get toasted on Sunday night. Sunday afternoon.
We're going to make the playoffs, aren't we, guys?
No.
They're going to make them. Watch. I want to be so mad about it too, but happy at the same time.
The thing is, if you make the playoffs, you're either picking 20th in the NFC East or you're picking 6th. So which would you rather get smoked at home against Tampa, or would you rather get that pick?
Yeah, I guess, and I do
want the pick. Give me the pick. I want Jamar Chase or Micah Parsons.
Obviously, I want one of those guys, but I live in the moment now, like Hembo. It's just I was so checked out last week because I'm like, A, we have 3 wins, so we're not a good team either way. But B, when I watch that game and then I hear Jaws talk on the radio and all, and hear how they did all this different stuff that they don't do with Carson, that would excel Carson's play. I know. I'm an apologist. I get it, but.
You're on his payroll. You got some of that guarantee. You're like that 0.4 of his cap hit next year.
Let's move on to the other depressing team in the city of Philadelphia. The Phillies made a move inside David Dombrowski. What are your thoughts on that hire?
So among all the people in the applicant pool, David Dombrowski was the only one I definitely did not want, and that's because his track record is just not such that he fits well with this club now. I will say, if there's a silver lining, the track record being pursue high-priced free agents, trade young players, prospects for present-day value, accumulate payroll, etc. The one, I guess, if there's a silver lining here, it's that this indicates to me the Phillies aren't going to tank or try to sell, which I think, as a fan of the team, is good because I think the Phillies can rebuild this program from a scouting and player development perspective and build an analytics team while not tanking what we did for years under Matt Klentak. That's, to me, the most important thing, because for a market as big as we're in, and for a stadium as beautiful as we have, and for a fan base that generates as much revenue for the Phillies as we do, there's no excuse for the Phillies to ever be as bad as they were for the 5-6 years before the last few. What I'm hoping Dave Dombrowski can do is find some value in the margins with some free agents and possible trade options this offseason. But also, it's not obvious to me that if you just rebuild the bullpen, this team is one of the 5 best in the National League last year. The Phillies, at one point or another, led in the 3rd most games in all of baseball last year, and they found a way to miss the playoffs. That's how bad their bullpen was. So, sure, you might have to watch JT Realmuto walk, right? You might have to rebuild your lineup a bit, but that to me isn't the problem. If the Phillies can find some real value in the bullpen, and Dave Dombrowski has a good track record of doing so without giving away a ton of future talent, I think I could come around to the move. But when I saw the press release, I have to admit that I was a little bummed out because I'm of the opinion that the Phillies would. The much more important thing than trying to win right now for the Phillies is to try and compete now and build the program long term so that you can sustain this thing a little bit the way that we did from 2007 to 2012, because it doesn't appear that we're all that close to getting there.
Yeah, I'm completely with you. It's the one guy that I really did not want here, but everything we've heard from Milton is he wants to save money. He lost a lot during the pandemic. He doesn't want to spend. Is this hire a sign that maybe he's finally going to get off his wallet and we're going to spend some money in Philly? Or do you think maybe we wait one off season and then that's when we go in?
I don't think the Phillies will spend big this offseason, but I'm good with that. It's the owner of the team. He can spend his money how he wants, but you can't sell me an artificial bill of goods, right? You can't sign Bryce Harper and Zach Wheeler and all of a sudden punt because some guy in China ate a bat, right? You can't. You have your foundation has to be stronger than that. So from where I sit, Dave Dombrowski should want to keep this team competitive right now to a point where, let's say, if they hit their 75th percentile, they can make the playoffs, right? The Phillies over the last 2 years have probably hit their 25th percentile, which is to say, going into the year, you thought they'd be a good bit, and they actually netted out. So, like I said, if you rebuild the bullpen and you can find some value in, some free agents on 2 or 3 year deals, I think that you probably can compete while at the same time keeping Alec Boehm and keeping Spencer Howard and keeping, some of your top prospects, because ultimately in baseball, the best currency is cheap, cost control players. And the Phillies don't have a lot of those. So I'm not sure that they're at liberty right now to move any of those guys, even if you can get a lot of present day value in return, because the Harper contract and the Wheeler contract and a few others are a little bit inhibitive. I actually think a good strategy for the Phillies this offseason might be to move Rhys Hoskins. It might be a little bit unpopular, but this team needs pitching, and I'm not sure that Hoskins has a long-term future here. So that would be sort of the one bomb I drop at the end.
No, I'm completely with you on the Rhys Hoskins point, especially if you can get bullpen help. I think that would be perfect. Yeah. You don't know what he is. He changes his stance. I mean, we'll see what happens.
Consistent.
But you think that the Dombrowski hire gives us a lot better chance of re-signing JT? Because in my opinion, it does, but a lot of people still don't think so.
Does it provide a better chance? Yes. But I think the Yankees signing the Mets signing James McCann is a bigger indicator than that even. So really. That's from where I sit, that's even more important. I don't think JT Realmuto is going to be back. I think he's going to get a 9-figure deal elsewhere. And I'll be honest with you, I think he's probably worth $150 million over the next 5 years, but not to us. I think he's worth that to maybe a club like the Yankees or a club that, is one sort of boutique piece away from being a legit World Series contender. I think JT Realmuto for us over the next 5 years, at least in the short term, is like the difference between us winning 83 and 85 games. I'm not sure that he's – and I think that $150 million, if you spread it out over the course of, over the rest of your roster, actually might provide a lot more value. So I'm sort of in the minority in thinking that I'm not all gung-ho about re-signing a 30-year-old catcher to a contract that large. I mean, historically, people at that position haven't held up that well. I think he's likely to because he's so athletic and toolsy. But if the Phillies enter next year without JT Realmuto as their catcher, I'm not going to freak out about it.
All right, so look. I got your opinion and I got George's opinion. When the hire was announced, some people weren't thrilled because he's known to deplete farm systems and he's the ultimate win now guy. But my response to that is, what farm system? So they don't have a lot to offer. Like you mentioned Rhys Hoskins, but they don't have anything really in the farm system to offer. Do you think, again, maybe not this offseason like George said, but next and going forward, he'll have to do more in the free agency mold of things and spend money? Like Francisco Lindor comes to mind. Jackie Bradley Jr. was one that was mentioned.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think he'll spend. I mean, you don't hire Dave Dombrowski to rebuild. Dave Dombrowski is ancient. And Dave Dombrowski, he was the GM when the Marlins won their championship, the first one. So this guy's been around for a long time. And everywhere he's gone, he's won by spending. He's good at that. So, yes, even though I don't like the hire, I do believe that there's good reason to believe that Philly's doing this is to at least send a message to the fan base and say, we're not trading Harper, we're not trading Wheeler, we're not taking this thing because, like I said, I think there is a foundation in place that the Phillies can win with, but they're going to have to find 5 or 7 wins elsewhere. The best places you can do that are internally through the farm system, which you must now get on prioritizing, and some value in the margins, through trades and through free agency. And Dombrowski has done a pretty good job, especially of identifying pitchers that have done that for him. And he traded for David Price, he traded for Doug Fister, he traded for Max Scherzer. He traded for Anibal Sanchez in Detroit. So there is that track record exists, and that might be the most important thing for the Phillies right now is to find value in pitching and not have to pay those guys a whole lot.
Yeah, we have a comment here. Ty Book said he built the 94 Expos as well. Left before 94, but built it.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, he's ancient.
That's
so
crazy.
The Phillies hired Pat Gillick. When the Phillies hired Pat Gillick, they were in a much different place. These are similar hires to me. So Pat Gillick famously came in to add 5 or 7 wins to a club that Emily had built and preserved. Right, we had like a young talent. We had Utley and Rollins and Howard and Hamels and Brett Myers and all those guys that formed the nucleus of our championship team. But what this team doesn't have are those young cost control players. What this team has are some guys closer to the middle to back end of their primes who make a lot of money now. So that's where the disconnect exists. But I think for Phillies fans who just have to watch Contact Mangler's roster for the last 5 years, it might provide some comfort that you're hiring a guy that has won all sorts of places dating back to the when we were born in the early 90s.
Right. Oh my God.
All right, Paul. Well, thank you so much for taking over a half hour of your time to come on. I love the Phillies gear, man. And I hope you're right. I hope we make the playoffs. We'll see. But I would love to have you on another time, and thanks for coming on.
All right, later, boys.
Great talk.
Thank you.
We done? We good?
Yeah. I got you.
Yo, he kind of. I've been teeter-totting on the whole Jalen Hurts thing all year, like whether I think he's the next quarterback for this team or not. With Wentz, he made some great points, man.
Yeah, he really did. But
it was eye-opening.
The crazy thing is he brought up Dan Orlovsky, so I guess they communicate. Because if we had dance, that would be like the total opposite, the total other side of the spectrum. That was really cool to see.
Look, the only thing I didn't want to I was going back and forth with him a little bit.
I knew you were.
I knew once he said all that stuff about Carson, you would have looked. If you were a cartoon, that would have been like when they boil red and I just seen it in your face, ready to go.
I couldn't believe he said that he's not going to start in the NFL next year. I
think that's Hembo, a little cap. That's
Hembo said Jalen Hurts is a better quarterback than Carson Wentz.
Yeah, he did.
That was my whole thing, and I didn't want to go
but
back.
The other points that you bring up that we don't talk about is when he was in Oklahoma, he did become a better passer. And you know what? I was even listening today, and a lot of points they were making about Jalen, when he's in that pocket, even though in the pocket they were doing different things more creatively with him than they have been with Wentz. He did have the slightest bit of Russell, knowing where to step in the pocket to avoid contact. The biggest stat that Hembo just told us was the 14 pressures and no negative yards. That was the biggest one.
And that's why I said, look, I think he did a lot more of on the side of Wentz isn't the future, which is fine. Maybe he's not. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe Gint's wrong, whatever. But the thing is, Jalen Hurts played one game. Game.
I agree with that.
163 yards, had a 43 QBR, whatever he said. The Eagles won on Sunday. Let's shift gears before we move to the Sixers. Let's just talk about this crazy game that they actually won. All of us didn't really think it, but we were all it would be the most Eagles thing for them to do is win. The Eagles won that game because of his mobility and he showed, I'll put it this way, he played great in the first half. He showed a lot of poise. He showed a lot of confidence. He wasn't rattled. That throw to Alshon Jeffrey was the best throw of the night, and he got smacked in the mouth when he threw it. He was awesome. But in the second half, now I get it. It was number one defense. You could throw that in there too. But to me, it took one half for the Saints to adjust to the type of style that Jalen Hurts plays.
But they're the number one defense in the league.
He was he threw for 38 yards. In the second half, he was 5 for 9 for 38 yards. 11 runs for 38 yards. So he didn't run all over him in the second half. And the lost fumble, which there were comments on the live stream saying, it's the end of the game. That almost cost him the game because the Saints almost recovered the onside kick. If that's Carson, he's getting killed. So he was great in the first half. He was below mediocre in the second half.
Wait, go into that Carson comment.
And hold on, one more thing. Right. He was very one read, and Hembo mentioned this. He was one read. If it's not there, he got the hell out of there. And that's great. and he knows what he needs to do, and it was simplified. But what I'm more geared to is not anti-Hurts. I want Hurts to succeed. If he leads the Eagles to a playoff run, I love it, okay? But I need more than one game. So for the fans out there that think I got comments that he's going to be the next big thing, he's the next star, dude, he played one game and threw for 163 yards with a 43 QBR. I need to see more out of the kid's arm before I judge what he is as a franchise quarterback. That's it. I'm not hating on him. Just show me more.
But your comment with Carson, how we would have killed Carson if he fumbled that late in the game, we wouldn't have killed him if he'd won the game the same way Jalen did.
But
if Carson had that same game that Jalen did, or somehow put a game together where he played good enough to beat the Saints, even if they adjusted in the second half and he had a fumble and they pressured him and kept him locked down, we would be having a totally different conversation about Carson now.
If the defense didn't give up 59 points in back-to-back weeks, we would have beat the Pittsburgh Steelers and the.
No, you're absolutely right, but as far as
turned into the 85 Bears.
Yeah, as like the last we can say about like this team right now, like as of right now, Jalen Hurts moving forward, if he's the starter for the rest of the year, one, I'm not mad about it. And two, if he plays good, I want him to have a shot going into next season fighting for the starting job. That's just fair. That's a fair thing, especially if somehow they win this division. If they win this division somehow, I don't care that, what would it be, 3 more games to basically clinch it over anyone else? We're playing division opponents. If you beat Dallas, Washington, and I also agreed with Hembo that Washington's probably the hardest game on the schedule just because the offensive line is so bad. But if somehow you beat like a team like Washington and Dallas and the Cardinals these last 3 games, and you somehow clinch, you go, what is that, 7 wins total, 7-9? And you clinch the division, or no, 7-8-1, and you clinch the division. I mean, like, you just got to see what you got. Like, because especially for me, I've been wanting this team to tank all year. But if this kid, he, like, everyone's right. This kid's just kind of like put a life in the team, like coming on the sidelines, throwing up his frat shit. Like, I loved it. Like, everything about it, I just kind of loved. Like, and I'm not just talking about football at this point. Like, there is something to say that the team was kind of rallying behind him. Like, and it just makes you wonder, because those were all really good points that Hembo brought up. And it's kind of like, oh, fuck. Like, I didn't really disagree with one thing he said. I sat there and was like, that kind of all makes sense. Like,
listen, no matter if you're a Carson apologist or you're a Jalen Hurts supporter through and through, Jalen Hurts is a better option this season to start the rest of the year than Carson. You all know that. His athleticism, the way he uses his legs, is just clear with this offensive line. Jalen Hurts.
That right there. Let me touch on that before we move on.
The O-line.
That's where my whole issue is, and I didn't say that to him. Is it's working now. It looks better as an offense now because he's more athletic. That's not fair to Carson. So to say your offensive line is shit, and let's not fix that and fix the wide receivers that can actually get separation for a quarterback that has proven what he can be in this league, for a kid that's just more mobile and can escape that pressure and it looks better in the moment, that's not fair. I agree. If Jalen Hurts wins out, they win the division, he should have a shot. The money is a whole different thing. But
money doesn't matter at this point if the guy proves himself.
Under the same circumstances.
Yeah. No, I agree with you.
Ty Book says, I just want to see more people making all these proclamations on sports radio. It's just crazy. He also says Washington has to lose twice. So
if they lose to the Eagles, that would be one of them.
Yeah, so they have
I know. I think for the rest of the year, Washington and the Giants don't have that great of a schedule. I'll double check that while we talk.
Hurt? Like, is Dwayne Haskins the guy right now? Because
I think Alex Smith is playing. I saw.
Okay.
Yeah,
that would be so much different scenario.
Yeah, very much different because Alex Smith and them actually look like a good team. All right, Washington has to play Seattle this weekend, the Panthers, and then us.
Yeah, they might go 0-3.
Well, I think Washington is a very winnable game
for us.
To be honest,
if McCaffrey plays the week after, they.
Seattle's a winnable game for Washington because the one thing that makes Washington kind of legit for this division, like, is that D-line is just actually like grown-ass men. I don't care if there's a rookie leading them. Like, those are a bunch of grown-ass men. Like, I was watching Baldy break down some film from that game. Oh, my God. The way they get to the quarterback is just – I would be scared. If I'm a team and I see Washington on the schedule, and I'm a quarterback, I would just be sitting there like, fuck, I'm gonna get hit a lot on Sunday. Like that's the only thing Washington had. Like they might have the best D line in football right now. Like they are very, very good defensively.
Also, going back to the quarterbacks getting hit, I will say though, Jalen Hurts better stop running 18 times if he wants to have a career in the NFL, because that is not going to fucking last. I'll tell you that right now.
Yeah, I need to see the arm before I'm all in.
That's all I'm in.
The mobility is there. If he has that type of mobility with a passing game, if he comes out this week and like he proves his arm strength is there, like he starts throwing some deep passes and like you see him connect on some really good throws, and he's still being mobile. You just got to sit there and be like, what do we have? Like, what do we have? Because the way he's running, man, it's almost like Lamar and them. Like he gets out and just runs and just knows where to run with the ball. And if you attach that with a better arm, like that's just when you have to be like, all right, we have to talk about this.
Yeah, and
before there was nothing to talk about because nothing had been proven. We had a half of a game from a Packers game, but he went out and beat the best defense. Granted, the defense did help him. But that's what they're going to have.
I also want to throw out one last thing before we move on.
Their whole thing.
He played great in the first half. I said that with Sam.
They were playing with Taysom Hill.
Is
that what you're getting to?
They played Taysom Hill. Sean Payton. The Saints were on their way to taking that lead until Sean Payton decided to go for it on 4th and 1 with Taysom Hill and call that dumbass play call rolling out to the short side. So you're lucky in those two aspects. Also, let's not act like – so the first – I gave him so much credit for the first touchdown, right? Great throw, took one on the chin, delivered to Alshon. Alshon makes a play, touchdown.
That's the only thing. Alshon got the TD. That's like the part that's up.
The 10th point to get to 10 is a field goal because Taysom Hill throws a pick at the Saints 30. The offense doesn't move the ball. Field goal, 10 points. Defense gets a stop. We get the ball. He makes a run, maybe one pass. Miles Sanders, 82-yard rushing touchdown. That gets to 17. And then to get to 24 at the end of the game when the Eagles were stalling for the entire second half and the Saints made it 17-14 and were driving, he gets a big run. He makes a pass to Greg Ward. They call a reverse and end around the Jalen Reagor that goes for almost 20 yards. And then Miles Sanders caps it off with 2 runs inside the 10-yard line. So, look, I just need to see more, man. He definitely gave this team a spark, this offensive life. We all knew that was coming. Now let's see. Also, I have no idea how the secondary is supposed to cover Arizona's offense. Like I know like he made points about the defense, and it's very true. We could move the ball against them. I don't know how we stop them because our secondary is so depleted now.
See, it's going to be tough, but Arizona really has not looked impressive last few weeks. It looks like Cliff and
but let's, dude, I know
more footage on Kyler Murray is kind of putting him in his place more.
Dude, I know that we looked good against Taysom Hill last week, but it's Taysom Hill. Let's not act just because there was a quarterback change. Let's not act like the Eagles defense isn't god awful against mobile quarterbacks. What is Kyler?
We'll prove it. If like this is the game, then maybe it was a fluke. Maybe the Saints game was a fluke. It doesn't help that, of course, Jalen had to throw to Alshon Jeffrey, the one guy that hasn't done jack shit all year, and he finally actually got him involved for a TD. That also kind of just is like, fuck, like he's a big money receiver that hasn't done shit all year, and somehow he got him incorporated for a TD. Like, I feel like that just adds to this whole problem. But we're going to know what he is this week. This is going to be a battle. This is going to be a battle with the Cardinals.
We're going to get blown. I think in the back of my head, I know we're going to win just because that's what's going to happen. But I would not be surprised if we just get the doors blown off. And we lose.
All right, Hembo said it. Bet it.
I kind of agree. I don't think we're going to lose.
You know me and loving to talk about the Eagles. But let's move on because I can't do this anymore. I can't. The live streams take too much out of me. Let's talk about the better team.
The best.
Don't say best. That's right.
I'm looking. I saw that flag behind George, and
the best.
Maybe the best team in the city. The Sixers with their first preseason
reunion might actually
on the Boston Celtics, 108-99. So before we got a lot to talk about here, guys. But first, again, I'll throw it to you first. What was your biggest takeaway? There's a lot of takeaways, a lot of guys to look at. Defensively, they held the Celtics to under 100. Offensively, there was good off-ball movement and ball movement. But what was your biggest takeaway of the game?
Like player-wise?
Anything.
Well, that Daryl Morey's a magician. Made a basketball team. Because a year ago, we sat in a preseason game. Well, the season would have started by now, but we thought about, oh my God, we got bully ball coming in. We're going to get to the foul line 25 times. We have Al Horford and Joel Embiid. And then Daryl Morey made a roster make sense of guys that can space the floor. He brought in depth. And so the biggest takeaway is he's a magician. Player-wise, though, it's that Shake Milton is a legitimate player, and there's no reason that he should be inconsistent at any point this year because clearly he could play, and he needs to play, and he needs to start, which we'll get into.
We're going to have a good back and forth on that, so stay tuned if you're watching now. George, what was your main takeaway from last night's first preseason game?
I love the bully ball because we heard it all from Brett Brown. He wanted bully ball. I wanted bully ball, but we haven't seen it like this. Stockers is different. This team is different. And shutting down big stars. I mean, Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown combining for 5 for 24 from the field. Like that's huge. Really good. Yeah, clamps. I mean, very good defensively. Shake, obviously, that shot is legit. He's a legit NBA player. I'm on the Gint train. I think he needs to start. And Danny Green having 4 steals. I mean, Danny Green, we know what he is, but damn, he looked very good last night.
He looked like a Robert Covington.
Yeah, he looked
exactly what he looked like. I felt
like Rocco from 3 years ago. So
he wasn't like in front of people, but he was always in like the passing lane a lot. Like I don't know. I got Rocco vibes from.
I think we had.
That would have been Rocco's best basketball game ever.
I think we had like 6 steals in the first half, and Danny Green had 4 of them. So you love to see that, and yeah, just a great game
for anyone that said he lost a step on defense.
Yeah.
On a short off season too. That's the craziest point. I guess it was like just a majority. Like I don't know what it was.
Yeah, it's almost like role players just don't play well next to LeBron. I don't know that.
I feel like the coolest thing, like you see.
Matt, what was your biggest takeaway?
My biggest takeaway is that the biggest takeaway that anyone's gonna see is 1, we didn't fuck up the draft, and 2, we got Shake as a legitimate NBA player. I don't think he should start. I think if you put that man coming off the bench,
that's our next topic.
If you make that man coming off the bench, he will have a 6th Man of the Year trophy in his hand at the end of the year. But going forward, also the big thing I noticed is when I turned the basketball game on with the starters in the first quarter, it looked like fucking basketball. You know, like that. That's just the easiest way to say it. The ball was moving. They were running sets. Everyone seemed involved. Everyone seemed like they had a clue. I almost didn't see anyone just standing around like you used to in freelance offense with Brett Brown. It looked like a legitimate basketball team. They weren't even running a lot of sets for Embiid.
They didn't run one.
And he still had 18. Like everything about the team's type of play was amazing. Dwight looked good coming off the bench. All your acquisitions looked like a legitimate NBA team. Like everything just looked right. And then to top it off, you get a 4th quarter of Tyrese Maxey making sure we win the game. And he goes off for 8 points and has 2 of the craziest looking floaters I've ever seen in my life. It was amazing. I think if you were a basketball fan, you completely enjoyed that game last night. But you did not enjoy Isaiah Joe because he did not look good. And the other takeaway, the last takeaway I will say is Matisse Thybulle looked lost on offense.
Yeah, he hasn't played like at all.
And that's what I was gonna get to. He hasn't played because he was battling an injury. But I really need to see that change. I know that's not him. He's a 4-year college player, so obviously he knows how to play basketball. Like those 4-year college players usually end up being really good team players, know how to move the ball well. So I don't think this is going to be around for long. I think it's just it's like the one negative you can talk about because last night's game was so productive and good. But if that continues, he's going to find himself at the bottom of bench minutes, and I really don't want that because everyone else on the team seemed like they had a good – I'll even admit this. Furkan Korkmaz looked pretty good in his role last night. Like, I did not hate it. I did not hate it.
Horrible.
For where he was on the bench minutes, like I didn't hate it. I didn't hate it. You know, he had a tough layup. He did make mistakes like he always does, but seeing him like as the 10th guy off the bench or
he came in first.
No, he was one of the first 3.
I missed that then.
He was the first. Wow. Him, Shake, and Dwight all came in at the same time.
Oh, that is right.
No, I do agree that you're saying that, but Dill, you can go ahead.
Well, I was looking for the airball video on Twitter, and I was going to share my screen and say that was the big takeaway.
He airballed that three. Oh,
no, I'm just messing around. Look, I agree with all of you guys. I think one of the biggest keys was watching them strap up Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum in the first half. You got to take it with a grain of salt because it's their first preseason game as well. They're shooting the rust out, so you got to look at it that way also. But because my thing is, and we're going to get into that too, what is their identity? Doc has said on numerous times he wants to be one of the best teams, maybe the best team on defense. He wants to be top 10 in defense and offense to be a championship team. And defensively last night, they looked amazing. You guys talked about the ball movement on offense. The spacing was good. I expect that to only get better, along with 3-point shooting. And they ran for a second. I think it was Joel that was the one that took the three. I didn't like that it was him that took it, but they ran a 3-man game with Ben in the post, someone in the corner. It might have been Tobias.
He didn't give him he didn't give Ben a perfect steal pass.
So I like that 3-man game there. Ben in transition had one to Shake, had one to Seth Curry, transition 3. That's what I was waiting for. I could have turned the game off after I saw that because that's all I wanted to see was a transition 3 from Ben to Steph. So all in all, I'm with you guys. Ginn said he rewatched the game today. I
rewatched it and then watched the first half again too.
Really?
2.5 times. Injected into my blood.
I also liked how Shake not only played free and ran the offense like Doc said he was going to this year, but he was in control of the offense. And when they came up to double Shake right when he crossed half court the one time, and he made the quick one read, got rid of the ball. That's what I want to
throw it to.
What?
Who'd he throw it to?
Was it Furkan? I forget.
He bricked it 3.
We have a comment here. Marquise Graham says Tyrese Maxey was the most shocking player. Can say whatever they want about it. It was a preseason game, but Maxey looked like a straight-up veteran floor general in his first game. Well,
I won't say all that.
Yeah, I mean,
think he looked very good, but I won't say he looked like a veteran.
You got to take it all with a grain of salt. Not only was it the preseason, when he came in, it was against like the third string.
He looked like a legitimate scorer. He looked like Lou Williams. That's exactly the first thing I thought of.
I liked his confidence and demeanor. You got to take it with a grain of salt of who he was going against. And before you start saying,
it was third string guys that are fighting to make the roster.
I agree. Tyrese Maxey was one of the highlights of the night. He looked awesome. So I think as the season goes on, his role is going to be very important on this team, in my opinion. So let's get into our first topic question I have here. We're kind of split here on the Phaithful Fanatics. Shake obviously was probably the main takeaway last night. 19 points on 8 of 14 shooting. I believe he was 3 of 6 from deep, 4 rebounds, 3 assists. Played free, ran the offense when Ben wasn't on the floor. Played well next to Ben as a combo guard. So let's start to them first. Ginn and George, tell us why Shake Milton should be a starter.
All right, so and hear me out here. Just hear me all the way through.
Okay.
So, and Hembo brought it up specifically. I really want someone in the half court where Ben doesn't have to be on the ball in the half court all that often. And I understand Seth Curry can kind of be that guy, but I think Shake's much better to be that guy.
I agree.
And then you say, oh, you're getting rid of some spacing. Not really. I understand Steph Curry's a better shooter than Shake, but Shake still shoots 40% on catch and shoot.
95th percentile in the league.
So that's what I'm saying. So then you go to the bench, because basically if you take Shake off the bench, you bring out, in my opinion, I think Tyrese Maxey is more than capable of handling the ball in the second unit. And then that brings Seth Curry off the bench. And then you run with probably Matisse Thybulle, Dwight Howard, and you kind of see Furkan dwindle towards the end of the bench at that point. But the only thing with that is
already
you could see Matisse's minutes shrink if he can't strike the floor at all. I just think I love Tyrese Maxey off the pick and roll, and I love Shake off the pick and roll. And I don't see how both can play off the pick and roll, both coming off the bench.
Agreed.
And Dwight Howard and Joel Embiid, well, Joel Embiid doesn't really. Dwight Howard, every single time he screens someone, it literally looks like the person that gets hit is like just gets run into a brick wall.
And he's right under the basket immediately.
Which is why Shake had like a picture perfect alley-oop to him last night.
That was like, I think that was the highlight of the game.
Yeah. So, I mean, that's just my opinion of the situation. We all talked about how we wanted a point guard. We said a backup point guard. but we want someone to play in the half court. And I think we have that with Shake. I think Shake's really smooth. He's very confident in his handle, but he doesn't have to be the primary decision maker, especially in the fast break. If Ben's going to average 7 to 8 rebounds a game, and he'll probably get 3 to 4 assists alone on those rebounds. So he doesn't have to be your primary decision maker, but just in the pick and roll, I love Shake and I love Maxey both playing out of it. I had Maxey number 1 in my out of the pick and roll in the entire NBA draft. So I just think that's why I would start Shake over Seth. And it's not that I don't want Seth to start. If Seth starts and Shake comes off the bench, that's okay. But that's my opinion.
George.
Yeah. I'm going to start off by saying I think either way it's a win-win. I think this is the type of situation where it's like we're not going to get mad if either or happens. Like no matter what happens, we have 2 capable guys that are either going to come off the bench, one's going to start. Like that's what's going to happen. I like everything that Ginn said. He hit on the head. I also like that Shake can dribble the ball with authority. I like the way he handles the basketball. And we've seen Seth come off the bench in Dallas, and he's been super effective when he's done so. And I think either way, like what you said, Snap, like if Shake is a 6th man, he's going to walk away with that 6th man of the year award. I think it could happen with Curry too. Like either way, we're going to have a 6th man that is going to be very, very good for us, that can shoot the basketball, that can do whatever we need him to do. I just think right now Shake's proven that, God damn, he is the guy, and damn, he can really shoot the basketball. Like,
oh my God,
we all expected Shake to like take a step this year, but
he looked like he took a step.
Yeah, he looked like he took a step, and he was a lot more physical too. Like that muscle that he's gained, like you can tell. Like,
when he did the drive with Dwight Howard for that alley-oop, it looked like in years prior that defender would have kept him from getting to the right side and pushing it all the way to the hole to set up and that when he did that, when he finally got free of his defender, the help defense comes over, and when you have a guy like Dwight, he's such a physical presence under the basket. You can just lob it up. We've seen it in those little clips they did in practice. Like there was a play just like that, and he did it like in the first 5 minutes they played together.
So one more takeaway before I get to where I would put Shake is what I meant to say earlier is how freaking nice was it to have a second team come off the bench and not be like, oh shit, here we go.
Yeah,
it was incredible.
Dude, like Joel comes off the floor and it's not anymore of, oh, damn.
We got to get him back in.
Can we survive until Joe? How long can we survive until Joe has to come back in? There's none of that anymore. They're scoring off the bench.
Dwight looked unbelievable. If Shake and Maxey didn't have such a night, Dwight probably would have been the first star of the game for me.
Dude, he had that up and under layup on that one drive. Dude, I can't believe that didn't make highlights. He went up with the left and brought it down like a guard and went right. I was like, who is this man? I was like, is this Dwight Howard or is this like Kyrie Irving, dude? Like, he really did the up and under on a defender.
And one more thing, Gint, I'm totally with you. I think Maxey can easily give us valuable minutes off the bench, and I think it's going to make Furkan go obviously towards the end of the bench. But obviously yesterday he looked good. It was against kind of nobodies, and it was a preseason game. You got to take it with a grain of salt, but everything he did is what we wanted to see. And I still can't believe that he dropped in our laps at 21. It just still doesn't make sense.
It's mind-boggling.
But
I believe that Shake should be coming off the bench. I completely agree with both you guys said. And like this whole energy like we got right now, this isn't even like an argument at this point. This is just like 2 opinions because both of them work. That's the craziest thing. Like everything that you two said, like Gant and George, like I would sit there and be like, yeah, no, that absolutely makes sense. And I am sitting here. That absolutely makes sense. But when you look at it from the other's perspective, the reason I like that is because that freedom that you got to see Shake have, I think he gets more of a chance to do that and be more effective. Because, yes, he's a ball handler and he can run the offense. But I think his biggest strength is just scoring the shit out of is scoring with that ball. Like he just knows how to create offense. That step back when he put it through the legs and pulled back, he didn't even push off on that. Like he just made that space. Like a lot of guys cheat on a move like that. When he took it to the right side of the paint and he brought it back for the step back, he hit that perfectly on his own. No cheating involved. Like 2 fadeaways off catch and shoots. He had 3 threes. The one he was in complete motion. He just had his shoulder squares while moving and he still drained it. I just like the ability to have him as the primary ball handler because I think that is when he's the most effective. Because when he has the ball, he's one of these guys, when he has the ball in his hand, he creates more. And honestly, if you're looking to make a midseason trade for a guy like Harden, like, that's what you like. Gint said it before, like when we were texting yesterday, like show off Shake Milton. Because like if you're gonna give up a guy like James Harden a scorer, like you need to show that you're gonna get another scorer back. And I think the best way to show that Shake is a scorer is having him come off the bench and being that first option as the sixth man. And I truly think he'll win sixth man of the year if he comes off the bench. I really do.
So it is a great thing to have, like where either or works. The thing with me is, I don't necessarily even care who does start. I care about who's finishing the games, and I think he'll be on the floor finishing the game.
Jake will be in the game, finishing the game.
Yeah. So with that being said, it's not that big of a deal. However, I'm with Snap. I like him running the second team coming off the bench. I like his two-man game with the White. I like the ball in his hands. And then getting to your point about like Ben not having to always play with the ball, like be on the ball in the half court. My thing is, Shake is going to need his touches. If Shake's coming leading the second team, he's going to be getting he's going to be running the offense. He's going to be the cause of most of the offense. If you start him with Ben, Joel, Tobias, there's only so many touches and shots to go around in that starting five. Shake dwindles down. You bring him off the bench, you maximize him playing freely, him running the offense, him getting more shots up, which also, to me, gets Shake into a rhythm. I think we saw that in the Clippers game when he dropped 39. Like
we saw it last night.
Shake
got in the rhythm when no one else was on the floor. He got into his own rhythm immediately.
As long as he can command the offense and take care of the ball with pressure, when pressure's on, I'm all for him. I'm all for him being the sixth man. Especially with the way Doc Rivers has handled the sixth man in his career, especially with the Clippers. So I don't know. There's really no right or wrong answer. Both work. He's going to be on the floor at the end of the game, so it doesn't really matter that he starts. Yeah. But I like him, late in the first quarter, starting the second quarter, commanding the offense with the second team.
So the way I look at it, and I don't know if you guys agree or not, it's like, so if we bring Shake off the bench, you're probably limiting Tyrese Maxey to at most 12 minutes a night, and but
that can change too.
I understand that, but you can't play. I mean, you can play them together, but you're not maximizing anything with both of them on the floor.
Mm-hmm. No, I agree.
If you start Shake, so basically, if you bench Shake, you're losing production out of Tyrese Maxey. If you start Shake, you're losing production out of Furkan Korkmaz. So I look at it as
that's fair.
Which one would I rather lose? Tyrese Maxey at what? How old is he? 20 years old.
But I think also
Furkan at 67 years old that couldn't even hit the rim last night.
Furkan's young, but
what's it called?
Production in a sense if Shake's with the starting unit.
For sure. But I also think in the offense that we're running, you're going to see a lot of pick and roll, and you're going to see a lot of pick and roll in the second unit. And I understand.
It's beautiful. It's a beautiful freaking thing to watch.
You're also looking at, let's say let's just envision playoff time. How much is Ben going to be off the floor? Not a lot. How much is Joel going to be off the floor? Not a lot. So Shake has to find ways to get touches with these guys on the court, regardless of when it is. So. And he'll get touches. Doc has only spoke volumes about Shake Milton, and I don't see anything changing, especially how he played last night. So you have to find with those guys on the court. That's just my biggest take on it. But like we've said 1,000 times, this is a much better problem to have than the problem we just argued about with Carson Wentz. For darn sure.
You can just feel the energy, like with an argument like that. There's some emotion to it. Like with this, it's like. Yeah, if they do that, we're fine. If they do that, we're fine. It doesn't even matter. But the thing with Maxey, though, that I'm still questionable with is he was playing against guys that were clearly not.
And I tweeted
I need to see him against NBA talent, and that might be why Shake off the bench, even if it's for the first half of the season, is a better go.
That's what I tweeted. He has to play against NBA rotation players.
Yeah, he needs to be coming off of that bench unit and see what he's gonna. Even if there's secondary guys, like he was playing guys that might not make the fucking roster. You know what I mean? Of course, he killed them. Like that's what he does. He's a scorer. He's an NBA level scorer. playing against guys that might not make the team. I need to see him do NBA level scoring against NBA guys. And the other thing about Maxey, can we talk about it? He's a lot shorter than I felt like I know, but I just feels like he's shorter than I remember him in college. Like when he came on the court, like there was that one guy on the Celtics, I forget his name. He was 5'10", they
Carson
said.
Edwards.
Yeah.
Carson Edwards.
He did not look much taller than him, and I was like,
he's only 2 inches, 3 inches.
Yeah, dude.
It also doesn't
That's
help.
why I like the comparison to Lou Will. He reminds me a lot of Lou Williams. Just the way with the floater game in space, like getting creative with the ball. He gave me a really big Lou Williams vibe.
I think the highlight of Tyrese Maxey last night was after the game when they asked Doc in his presser. And Doc, as soon as they got Tyrese Maxey out of his mouth, he's like, man, he's good, isn't he?
He's good. Yeah, I just think, like, obviously it was against guys that you need to see better competition with Maxey up against, but
Naismith, whatever the fuck his name was.
That he could do that against them with ease is what you want to see, right? I mean, that's like obviously take it with a grain of salt. You need to see more from him, but that's what you want to see him do against competition.
He's playing up. He's showing that he's not in question about being in the G League this year.
Yeah,
that's what he showed me last night.
I'll tell you what, there's not going to be a G League, but if Shake was coming off the bench, I wouldn't be surprised if he got a lot of G League time this year. But there's not going to be a G League, so it's not going to really matter.
Yeah, there's not. All right, let's move on for a second. George actually mentioned one of our topics earlier, just with one of his quotes. Bully ball. I hate that statement because of who it came from, and it just wasn't a thing last year. So, what is this team's identity going to be this season? George, since you brought up bully ball, we'll start with you. What do you think their identity will be, either side of the floor?
I think Doc kind of has said it too. I mean, bully ball and just be a very good defensive team. Like he wants to be one of the best defensive teams in basketball, right? And I feel like with this roster we have right now, they have a chance to be that. Everything that we've seen, I know first preseason game, it's like you can't really take much out of it, but they really locked down Boston Stars. Like combining Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum 5 for 24 from the field is what you want to see.
Incredible.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is going to be defense. We're going to be a defensive team. We're going to be a very good defensive team. But not only that, we're going to be able to score the ball. Like all around this roster, compared to last year, we're in a very better situation than we were, and it's pretty amazing to see. Like at halftime yesterday, Jason Tatum 3 for 10, Jaylen Brown 1 for 11, Marcus Smart 0 for 3, Danny Green had 4
average
though. Danny Green had 4 steals. Like that, this team's going to be very good as a defensive unit.
So before I throw it to you, I agree.
I'm sorry. Just to add on to this.
I'm with George, so I'm going to go before you two. If you guys have anything different for their identity, I just think I agree. I think they're going to be a top 5 defense in the league. That's what Doc wants. All the quotes out of practice, because they haven't been together for very long, is that their defense is way ahead of their offense, which is expected, and you saw that last night. But the thing with their defense is they're long, they're quick. They have a lot of good individual defenders. They're not just great as a team. Ben, Matisse, Maxey, Danny Green. There's a bunch of individual defenders on this defense. I think they're just going to smother teams defensively, and they'll find ways to win offensively. Last night, they beat the Celtics. They only put up 108 points. Not only, but they put up 108 points, and they did not shoot well from 3, especially in the first half. I think they're just going to smother teams defensively, get out and then find whatever's working that night offensively is going to work. Whether they're hitting from deep, whether it's Seth Curry, Danny Green, Shake Milton, Tobias are going to be on, or maybe they're off like they were last night and Joe and Tobias are cooking the half court. Ben running with Shake and Seth and Danny in the open floor. Joel was running in the open floor last night. I think they're going to have numerous amounts of ways to score the ball and create offense, and their defense is just going to be so smothering.
Yeah, identity for the team. Real basketball team. No, but defense is definitely the key here. And for the first time in a while, I think we're going to see the Sixers lean more toward having a half-court offense that they really can depend on. I think that's going to be the major difference between this team and last year's team. Like, you're going to see this team not get stuck on half-court offense a lot more because I feel like we have the amount of guys to make that happen. I feel like we have the coach that knows the coaching style to make that happen. And finally, with the defense, I think last night was the first time at halftime I've ever seen the Sixers have less turnovers than their opponent. Like, 15-17, I believe, was the turnover ratio at halftime. I've never seen anything like that in my last 5 years of being a Sixers fan. They had less turnovers than their opponent at halftime. It was incredible. The defense is just going to define this team, and I love it. You guys pretty much said it all. Like, don't really even need to add more to that.
Yeah, I agree. The only thing I worry about, which is a minor worry, is you just see a lot of the wings in the Eastern Conference with Jaylen Brown, Jason Tatum, even though they struggled last night. Karis LeVert, Kevin Durant, list goes Giannis, Chris Middleton. It's like, is Danny Green going to be that guy that can guard that second wing player? That's the only thing you worry about, which is why I wish Matisse Thybulle somehow came out and shot 40% from three this season so he could just play more and guard those guys in crunch.
It could happen still. We don't know.
Yeah, it's probably not going to happen. But
no, probably not.
But yeah, that's out of everything was so positive last night. So I don't even want to end on that kind of negative note. But
it is a good point, though, because I haven't even really considered that. Because now that I'm sitting here, there's probably the Eastern Conference is loaded with wing players at an all-star caliber.
I wrote it out on every team, basically.
But, I mean, you can say Ben's probably going to cover the bigger ones. Like,
every team's best player.
Ben's going to be on KD. Ben's going to be on Jason Tatum. Ben's going to be on Giannis. Ben's going to be on Jimmy Butler. Like, they're going to stick him on those types of guys. But like you said, it comes down to that second player. If that second star player on that team is a wing player, like a Bradley Beal, or like a Karis LeVert, can Danny Green settle in and lock up? Which he kind of can last night, which I like that.
Jake Milton looked way better defensively last night, too, than I thought he would.
He's got the weight now. He's not going to get bullied around anymore.
Yeah, that's another thing. Every single part of our team looked more bulkier. Furkan Korkmaz looked bigger. Matisse looked bigger. Shake Milton obviously looked bigger. It was, like I said, there was nothing negative about last night.
That's speaking of weight, the only other concern I have for Tyrese Maxey is that he is just so small compared to everyone else on the court.
We also had Taco Fall on the court next to him last night.
That didn't help. But even when you were looking at him at people his size, he does look like he has a lighter frame on him. Obviously, that's going to come with time. But again, biggest thing I want to see from Tyrese moving forward, I need to see him play NBA players, not Carson Edwards and what was that kid's name? Naismith or whatever the fuck his name was.
Yeah. All right, boys. Well,
Dill.
Yeah. I was just going to get to that plug-in. Show it off.
Listen,
merch.
Key Republic. They got a bunch of different colors. We're gonna hopefully come out with new design too with it. So if you're interested, hop on, cop the merch, represent.
Cop the merch.
Comfy chip. It is so comfy. I promise. The shit's so comfy. It fits nicely. Come on, cop it.
Yep. Go follow us on Twitter at FaithfulFans2. It's FaithfulFans2. Thank you guys so much for watching. Thanks for Paul Hembo for coming on. It was a lot of fun. Also, new show I will be starting hopefully next week. It's called The Daily Dose. Should I tease the intro again?
Yeah, go for it.
You got it? I haven't seen it.
It's not a finished product, but this is what Chris Deibler came up with as part of it. So here we go.
Enjoy. I love the music. The music is the best. When I seen them in the huddle, bobbing, and it was on beat, I was like,
that's the AI ear.
I thought he was in the huddle.
The AI ear.
They have to take Wentz out of there soon, though.
Well, that's what I said. When Bryce Harper gets traded and Carson Wentz is gone, they're not going to have that.
Yeah. No Bryce Harper trade rumors in this bitch. We're not doing that.
Merch. I'm about to go cop every Carson Wentz piece of merchandise I can get.
50% off. Oxford Valley Mall, Dick's Sporting.
Follow us on Twitter at FaithfulFans2. Next week, we're going to be moving to 5 o'clock probably every Wednesday now. So Wednesday at 5 on the Painted Lines YouTube, Twitter, Facebook. Please subscribe to the Painted Lines YouTube channel. There's a tons of content, tons of different podcasts. We live stream the Eagles games. We live stream the Sixers games. So come check those out on game nights. Also, next Wednesday when we go live here at 5 is opening night for the Philadelphia 76ers against the Washington Wizards. So,
Oh my God, it is.
yeah,
Need Clown Russ.
Woo! Let's
we'll
go.
be breaking down that
You got it.
opening
I want to
night
be on
game.
that live stream. I need to be a part of the crew that night watching. Either that or I'm just gonna sit in complete silence by myself and watch it. That's kind of how I go usually.
I just scream at my TV the whole time when I'm by myself, but it's all right. It's a sickness. For me, for Gint, for George, for Snap, have a nice night.
Go cop.